Welcome to the Opportunity Podcast, where entrepreneurs come to learn from real buyers, sellers, and industry experts on the lesser-known growth opportunities to build their online business empires. We'll uncover tactics veteran online business entrepreneurs have used to build, buy, flip, and sell their way towards personal wealth. Sit back, grab a coffee, and get ready to uncover hidden growth secrets. The Opportunity Podcast starts now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Opportunity and the Empire Flippers podcast. I'm your host, Gregory Elfrink, the head of marketing here. And today I am interviewing Ricky Kesler from Income School and Project 24. I've known Ricky, or known of him rather, for many, many years. In fact, I think we even talk about it in the podcast. I'm pretty sure I got Justin, our CMO, onto his podcast. It's like one of the first things I did at EF when I first joined up over 6 years ago. So it's cool. It was kind of like a date with destiny of meeting this guy who's been in the space, but I never really had a chance to sit down and talk to him. And he's done a lot of really cool things. I think what he's doing with his media companies, with his content businesses, adding YouTube to the mix, doing bigger monetization. Also, what he's doing at Project 24 with his community is really, really cool stuff. So we dive deep into a bunch of different stuff onto this podcast. Make sure you come to the podcast and leave a review because that helps us out a lot. And make sure you give Nick on the YouTube channel a bunch of love as well. Talk to you guys soon. Let's get into this interview with Ricky. All right, Ricky Kesler, welcome to the podcast. We were just talking offline how I feel this is almost like a date with destiny because I've followed your stuff for so long over the years. So welcome to the podcast, man. How are you doing?
Doing great. It's awesome to be here. I'm glad to finally connect. You know, it feels like it's been a few months to make this happen, but I'm glad to be here.
Yes, that's right. You were one of the casualties of my worldwide conference tour. I literally been on a plane for like over 120 hours in the last 35, 45 days or so. So sorry about that.
It's super hard. We
were able to make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Where in the world are you right now?
I'm at my office in Idaho. We're in a small town in Star, Idaho, and it's a great place to be. Nice chilly morning this morning.
Oh, yeah. I'm very familiar with those, being from Alaska originally. Idaho, that's an interesting state. I feel like there is a absurd amount of internet marketers that live in Boise, Idaho.
Yeah. I mean, even ClickBank is based here. And then Russell Brunson, he's here. ClickFunnels, based here. So yeah, lots of stuff here.
I'll have to come visit. Maybe I can do a live podcast tour with you and a bunch of the other internet marketers there.
Yes.
I know you quite well with Income School, like I said, but for our audience out there, maybe they're new to you. They've never heard of you. Could you describe briefly what you do and your entrepreneurial journey and how you got to where you're at right now?
Yeah. So Income School, our goal, kind of our mission is, for the most part, we help people who are trying to kind of start side business to be able to replace their full-time income with income generated from an online business. Our main focus is we help people use content to drive traffic and then monetize that content. So we do blogging, we do a lot with video, YouTube as well. But yeah, that's our goal. And it's kind of expanded to help, because really the same principles apply. I've started working with some people who have small businesses and are trying to get more traffic to their websites, because even the ads game is really, really competitive in local SEO and stuff. But that's the goal, is we use content to essentially whatever people are searching on the web, we have content to try to get them to get the answers that they need. They come to our websites and then we make money off of that. My journey, I mean, has been really interesting. I started out as a chemical engineer, actually. I spent a few years working in industry as an engineer, engineering background, kind of an engineering brain. For people who are familiar with that, like just very much a problem solver kind of, but not so much like a really creative type. So it's kind of interesting that I've kind of landed into being a content creator. I did that for a while. I got an MBA. I worked in marketing. I worked as a project manager doing some web-based projects and stuff for HP for a little while, which is what got us back to Boise, which is awesome because that's where I grew up. But while I was on that journey, one of my best friends from growing up, a guy named Jim Harmer, he'd been doing blogging and some YouTube and podcasting with this photography blog that he started. And so then he built up some other blogs and he had bought and sold some websites along the way. And he kind of started to have this process that he thought was pretty repeatable for how to start a blogging business. But he's the creative type. He's the entrepreneur type. He's the one who's like, I want to go start a project, but the nuts and bolts and the details isn't really his thing. And he's like, I'm going to need a partner if I'm going to do this right. And so that's when he reached out to me and was like, hey, I know you're the type, you're the guy. Do you want to do this? And we started remote. I was living in Texas. He was here in Idaho. Within a year, I was back in Idaho working for HP, doing this on the side. And then we built this up. It's been a few years now. I left my job. He sold his photography blog. We've been doing this full time and teaching. We have a system now. We have a membership called Project 24. That's where we help our members, and they doing it. They're creating blogs, they're creating YouTube channels, and using those to generate awesome incomes. I've had a couple hundred people who have reported going full time, being able to replace their job. So it's pretty cool. That's the reward at the end of the day.
That's awesome. I don't know if you know much about me, but my background was I was an oilfield roughneck in Alaska. Like I'd get off of the rig, I'd start reading blogs like you, right? Like I think Niche Pursuits was really big back in the day. Glenn Alsop, all of them I was reading.
Yep.
So content sites where I really first started sinking my teeth in marketing. I think it's funny you said the engineering thing, because the best SEOs I know, they all seem to have an engineering background, or they were heavily addicted to StarCraft. It's like one of the two, usually both. So I often joke my marketing ops guy is my second command. Between him and me, we're one full stack marketer, because I'm like the creative tornado. He's the guy like who knows how to set up the automations and the workflows. So we're almost like one marketer if you combine us together.
It's awesome.
One of the things I really like about your stuff, when you're teaching people on blogging, and maybe this has changed, I know you used to espouse this, but you don't really focus as much on the backlinking side of things as a lot of other people do. You seem to be more like content velocity, if you will. Is that still true, or lingered back into the backlink building camp?
No, I would say that's still, for the most part, true. I would say what's happened is over time, our approach has evolved a little bit, and it's had to. The algorithm continues to evolve, but not just the algorithm, but sort of the marketplace that we're in, the environment. And so in the early days of teaching this, and I'm talking just like 5-6 years ago for me, that worked extremely well. We just create content and like Google does its job, gets indexed. It's the right kind of content. We do have a strategy for how we pick the topics to write about. So it's not just a matter of like, go write stuff, whatever you feel like.
Spray and pray, type and pray.
Exactly. I've seen so many bloggers who start writing articles, and I look at their first 10 articles and I'm like, oh no, this is not going to work, because it's all just like all the opinion stuff they wanted to get off their chest about their niche, right? And it's like, nobody's searching for that. Nobody wants to know what your opinion of this thing is, because you're not yet an influencer. Maybe someday.
Right.
But like right now, nobody cares. Nobody's going to search for that. And so we do have an approach for that, for sure. Everybody's got kind of their keyword research approach, and that's important. But then in addition to content, it's grown more and more important to have authority of some kind. And so that's kind of the essence of link building, right? Is essentially get votes from other websites in favor of yours being accurate and authoritative in some way. But there are a lot of approaches to link building, that some that are like pure black hat that really Google can pretty quickly identify as spammy and not effective. And there are some approaches that I think are perfectly fine, but they're a huge consumer of time and effort for sometimes a pretty low reward. And so what we do is, and what we've had to do, again, there have been major changes in that environment. And I say that because like there's so many people now trying to do this, and a lot of them that are building links. And we found that there are some marketers who will take a website that's got really good content, but doesn't have much in terms of links. And they'll just like spin every article on that website, build a bunch of links to theirs, and then now they're outranking you for everything. One of our sites we talk about publicly pretty often, it's called cookforfolks.com. And there's one website out there who, like every article we write, right after us, they have the same article, same topic. It's slightly different wording on everything, but they're doing that to us and about 5 other websites. So they look huge and are building links like crazy. And so what we've had to do is focus a lot on building authority in various ways. And so we focus on topical authority by having depth of content. You can't just cover your niche like broadly, but stay only surface level. You need to kind of pick some parts of your niche and dive deeper. But then also we do teach people to participate in their industry. And this is where the link building happens. But for me, like I don't call it link building, because for me, it's not about the link. It's about building real authority. And so one of the best things you can do is go be on someone's podcast. Like, we know this works, right? And what usually happens is, your name gets seen and heard, and really, like, you get heard by someone else's audience in your niche. And also you get a link, like, you're going to get the link because in the show notes, basically everybody in their podcast is going to link to how to find this person.
Yeah, you get 2 links, right? Multiple links. They distribute across all Spotify, Apple, but also on their own website. So you get that unique referring domain. Usually they publish on the website.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. I mean, there are other things that we do, but the goal is to build expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, which is what Google refers to it. And the link is a piece of that. But that link is really organic. And I think that the effect is much greater. And so this is a message. I don't care if people call it link building, but some people tell me it's like, I've tried to explain this and people are like, oh, it's just semantics, man. You don't call it link building. We call it link building, but it's the same thing. The difference to me is the link isn't the goal. The link is just a piece. It's one of the things that happens that Google can measure directly. But there's also the indirect authority building that happens when you get to have a conversation with someone and you're viewed as authoritative. So anyway, yeah, podcasts, guest content's fine. It's great. But I think a lot of people in the goal for the link, they're willing to I've seen some things where people, it's like services where people are building links for you or, using Haro or whatever. And I'm just like, man, the quotes they're using are just like completely made up, pulled out of their rear end. It's like, it's not what I would say. So why would I want that on some article on the web, some quote by me that is something I would never say? Anyway, I think there's a lot that people do because they want the link so bad, but it doesn't build real authority. It just gets the link.
I 100% get where you're coming from because I have a lot of SEO friends. And I think you do too. And we both probably agree that a lot of our SEO friends are really good at ranking, but not necessarily good at marketing. So they don't get like the other aspect of this whole thing. Like I teach my team when we build out backlinks, like the link is not the goal. Like you just said, like what I really care about is like, how do I get more of that brand's equity looking at me, right? Like their traffic looking at me, and even deeper, getting that brand to partner with me, not just once, but multiple times over and over and over again, where their audience knows me so well that we might as well be like content partners or whatever, right? I think that works really well when you're building authority sites. But let's backtrack here because I'll ask it now so I don't forget. So you say with your niche website, like going on a podcast, great way of building a backlink. So I'll roll these 2 questions together. If I was just starting out building my own site from scratch, what would you say are the key building blocks that I need to put in place, like foundational to start this? But the second part of that question is like, say I do want to do that podcast backlink. Is that me as the owner of the website doing it? Or am I hiring like an expert to do it to kind of be like the face of it, so to speak?
Cool. Well, I'll address both of those. So first of all, when starting from scratch, there are some key building blocks. When I'm first starting and what I'm teaching people now is when I first do we call it search analysis rather than keyword research, because I'm not really looking for keywords. I'm looking for search queries. Like, what are the things people are looking for on the web in my niche? And when I do that first round of it, I do want to find some searches where like the competition, it seems really low, right? I need some early wins. So that's important. But before I do that, like I also want to take whatever my niche is and I want to break it down into smaller components. So a lot of people are like niche down, niche down, niche down. And that is important, but not for like the site. So for my website, like I'm not thinking, oh, what's the smallest niche I can pick? What I'm thinking is like, here's the site that I want to build today or that I want to have eventually. And then I'm going to niche down to pick certain categories to focus on in the very beginning. And I'm going to pick more than one, but I'm not going to pick more than 3. So 1 to 3 kind of like pieces of the niche where I can get really focused and I can kind of cover that content, that topic pretty exhaustively. What this is going to do is it's going to give you that foundation where from the very beginning are building topical authority on small things. And then over time, we're going to expand outward. So we'll end up creating some clusters of content that are closely related rather than like, we've made this mistake before because we have writers. And so it's like, we can write tons of content and we throw 100 articles at a website, but they're not focused on specific things. And we end up with this like super wide, broad content, but we don't get very deep on anything and it doesn't work as well. Whereas like 30 well-written articles that cover like 3 pieces of the niche build authoritativeness just from the content itself, because Google sees like oh, you've covered this in depth. You must know something about it. So that is like the foundation. And then we can build on that. We can expand outward, cover more categories. And really, you can decide at any point, do I want this to be kind of a small niche site and focus on this piece of the niche? Or do I want to become an authority site? Do I just want to grow this and become an authority in the broader niche and just add more content and be more involved in the industry? So that's kind of foundational. And then in terms of like podcasting, that's an area where it can be tough. We do have some of our members who are very much like, and we do this to some extent too, but they love this process. They love building sites, but they're not really like the face of anything. They own them and they're like the investor almost, right? And so they're outsourcing the content like entirely. They basically come up with the topics and that's it. Most of those people aren't doing as much industry outreach because it's a little harder to outsource and it's a little harder to keep up with. I think the main focus there is like build the topical authority and then hope that's enough. And usually it's going to take more content to get similar result. And you have to do it pretty well. Otherwise, the people who are active in the industry are going to beat you every time. But we have some people that are just killing it with that, making great returns on their investments. I do think there's a model that exists where you could outsource that, but essentially get someone who is expert or at least reasonably expert who can sort of be the face or at least the voice, like on a podcast, let's get on podcasts, but maybe the ones that don't do video or video podcasts, as long as you can keep it, the same person every time. If there's someone that you can contract with or something, I think that can work.
The reason why I wanted to ask you that is I want your insight, but I'm a big fan of this business model of the whole content media business. I helped build EF based around content. I thought we do it. I feel a lot of times my friends in the space, they think too small, like their mind is always stuck that this is just a little niche website, but you can grow it into something massive. Like for example, at EF, I am an example of what you can do with your own niche website once it gets big enough.
Precisely.
To hire someone, right? I don't know if you know Kevin Espiritu, but he's a guy I bring up all the time from Epic Gardening. That guy is a great example of someone crushing it. He was the face of it. I don't think he is as much now. And now they're exploding across TikTok, all the socials. So he has this whole media empire he's built. But he initially did start off as the face of it. I love that stuff. Outside of that, so we have the topical relevance, potentially getting on podcasts or outsourcing it. Is there other growth stuff that you are looking for that maybe I don't want anyone to be the face, but other things I could do to grow the media website?
If you're not really going to be the face or they're not going to have somebody else to be the face, most of the time it's okay, well, I'm going to build this up as a niche website. It's all about niche sites. And I think that's great. It's a model that works really well. What I find is working for a lot of people is they just start another one and another one, which has trade-offs, right? Because every time you start over, there's kind of that early phase where you don't really earn anything. And it feels if I just add more content.
The money pit sandbox phase, yes.
That's right. But I also find that if you're thinking niche site, if that's the mindset you have, you were talking about, you're thinking small, then adding more content, you reach a point where you plateau. And I find that what's happening usually is you write a new piece of content and you're cannibalizing from other content you have. You're cannibalizing traffic. And so it's just each added article just has a much smaller and smaller and smaller return unless you just broaden into a huge niche and then you have an authority site. And at some point you're going to grow a team. It's big enough. You're going to do exactly what you were talking about. So yeah, I find that what a lot of people who want to play kind of the investor role, what seems to work is they just kind of build up a portfolio of sites. A lot of times start playing the game of buying and selling. And that's where Empire Flippers comes in.
Unsponsored.
Yeah, exactly. No, but there's a huge market for this. People are buying and selling sites all the time. Anyway, so that's kind of the way I see it for a lot of people. But for people who want to build something more, right? They don't want to think small. Then yes, I think the path then becomes building a team around it. So if you don't want to be the face of everything, I think that's fine. In fact, I think that's great. It's hard when you are. I tell you, I'm in that position. I own Income School and I run Income School and I still have to wear a lot of hats. I don't get to just be a CEO because I'm also on the videos. So I have to make videos and, the outreach. I'm here on the podcasts being interviewed and stuff. And it ends up being a lot of work. And then it's well, cool. Maybe I could get somebody else to take over the YouTube channel. But if you've been the face of it for a long time, it's hard to make that transition and have it be successful.
I think when I transitioned into start doing more of the public appearances, there was definitely a drop off in terms of like people were used to, Justin Joe being on this podcast, or even more recently when my content manager Sarah left and now I'm on the podcast, like, who's this guy? But like,
Yeah.
well, luckily I've done YouTube channels, I've spoken, so most of our audience already kind of knew me, but you always get that drop off. It is a tough trade off, especially in the start. It's an uphill battle for sure. I want to move into talking about buying and selling, but before I do, just two quick questions. Do you use any email marketing with your websites that you're building as well, or do you just focus mostly on SEO?
I do like email marketing. I think building up a customer list and owning that list, I think is super valuable. Google algorithm updates are always kind of a crapshoot. You don't know. Sometimes they're totally fine. And other times you're like, why does Google hate me? And they don't. Google doesn't hate you. It's just the way that it rolls sometimes.
This is a confused algorithm. It doesn't know what it
Yeah.
hates or loves. Changes all the time.
Exactly. So yeah, I think email marketing is extremely valuable. I think it's something we need to do more of. I recently made a couple of videos about it that didn't do that well on YouTube, which just signaled to me that my normal YouTube audience is just either not that interested or just not there yet, which worries me a little bit. Maybe we need to talk about it a little bit more because I honestly, like, it's not that hard to get started. And I think it's something we should be doing.
I think it's such an excellent way to build a secondary traffic stream. Like just from a valuation standpoint, it's going to lift up your valuation, but it opens up so many marketing opportunities. And I'm not surprised your video didn't do well on it because I have so many friends who have built an email list for their content site and they've never even emailed the list. They're like, well, I don't know what to say. Like, what do you mean you don't know what to say? Like, why are you even building this if you're not using it? Like, it's not helping your evaluation if you don't use it, right? So I always think that's funny. My other question for you is, so we talked a little bit about starting new websites. Is there kind of a breaking point in terms of the limit of how big your portfolio can become? Maybe for you personally or what you've seen, like, because I have friends who have, say, 2, 3 big websites. Usually two of them are suffering because there's that one big winner. But what have you seen in your experience?
It's really hard to balance a big portfolio. I would say for most people, 2 or 3 sites is about all I would manage at any one time because, like you said, it's hard for anything more than the first one to not suffer, whichever one you're focused on. I think that's true for most people unless you are a disciplined, systematic kind of person, right? If you've done a lot of management, one of the people that comes to mind who's a Project 24 member, has been for a long time, who's done this extremely successfully. He's older than I am. He's managed people for a long time, been a partner in his company for a long time. That's something he knows. It's a skill set that he has. Then in this industry, we get a lot of young people who don't have like management experience from a previous career or something, who do this and they're really successful with a website and they're like, oh, awesome, cool. And then they move on to the next one, but the first one declines over time. We have to learn to put systems in place to keep things going. So for me, it helps. I have a team, so I can have people actively looking at them. And so then for me, the limitation is only like, how many people can I have trained up to know what they're doing to keep these things going and to be active on them at all times. But for any one person, it's hard to run more than 2 or maybe 3, unless you're just really skilled with management.
100%. I'm glad you said that because I think when I look at like how to build wealth, I see so many different business models with my position, right? From e-commerce to Kindle, all sorts of stuff. I think the 4 horsemen are coding, which I think is actually the weakest one. And I think will get weaker as time goes on, just because so many people are learning how to do it now and coding is becoming cheaper in a lot of ways. But sales, marketing, and then delegation is like the number one. I think marketing is the second most powerful because of the ability to have leverage, but delegation by far is the biggest key to success. I'm glad you mentioned that guy too, because there's a lot of people in our audience who are not even in our space yet, looking at maybe buying a business from us. They've never ran a digital business. They're like, I have 0 skills. Like, well, you probably actually have a lot of skills already. Like if you are above 40 or middle management, like you're a better manager than a lot of my 6-figure SEO friends. So you could probably become a 7-figure SEO.
Totally. Oh yeah. Yeah. There are a few skills here that you can learn, and this is totally doable. There are some skills that experience is the best teacher. And so if you have those skills already from a different career path, like, cool, you're set. You'll learn the blogging stuff.
So I want to ask you, if you were in that person's shoes looking to buy a website, I'm not even sure if you acquire websites yourself, but if you were looking at acquiring websites, what would be your criteria? What would you look for?
Yeah, for me, because I would say there's a couple different approaches depending on what you're looking for, right? So, for a lot of people, if you're just looking to have a portfolio of websites that generate you a good income, I kind of think about it like real estate. You might want to build something that just it's good, it's stable. It's like buying an apartment complex or investing in one where like they have a pretty good fill rate, they keep the apartments mostly full, the tenants aren't much trouble. And so with a website, in that case, it's like traffic's pretty steady. Traffic sources are mostly organic. I don't have to do a ton of social media work. Maybe just a few systems I need to keep in place. I need to keep refreshing content, maybe adding some content and stuff. But like for the most part, traffic's pretty stable. The monetization's pretty stable. It's monetized in pretty straightforward ways. Doesn't rely entirely on things outside my control. That's a tough one. A lot of the monetization we do in blogging, it's like affiliate marketing. Well, you don't control the commissions. And even the product you sell could disappear one day. And now all of a sudden you need to update content, get a new product there, update your links, keep that active. And so if you have something of your own, you can sell. I love digital products, information products. Then I'm in control of keeping it up to date. I'm not just relying. I love affiliate marketing. I love paid ads, programmatic ads. I think they're great ways to monetize, but you can have something of your own that can help a lot. That stable sort of a website where like, I just need, maybe there's these like 3 or 4 things that I have to check once a month, or I can put somebody on it. And as long as they're kept up to date, it's stable, probably for years to come. For me, that's not usually what I'm looking for. For me, I'm more like the guy that wants to go buy the house that I can flip, right? Like this house is undervalued because there's something wrong with it. Yeah, it's right. Like I look at a website and I'm like, okay, this person missed something. Maybe there's a monetization method that I know more about because of my experience, and they just are not using it. We've seen some cool opportunities. We've seen some where like the content's good. We look through the content, we know it's good and should be working better. And then we look at the site and it's like, oh, like 50 of their articles are orphaned. They're not even linked from anywhere. Like you can't, like they're probably not even crawled. Like, okay, cool. This is an opportunity. Let me just fix that. And it's just a quick little technical SEO thing that they just didn't understand, something really basic that I can fix easily. If I'm going to have to take a site, though, that has a lot of content, but it's not very good, and I'm just going to have to rework everything, then usually I'd rather start from the beginning and build my own. I've done that a few times. I've bought sites where I was like, yeah, we could probably improve this content and fix it. And it feels like an uphill battle the whole time. And there's never a quick win. So I love to find opportunities for quick wins. And it usually is somewhere in the monetization or something fairly simple on the content side or the SEO side that's just preventing good content from working. Yeah, I'm looking for opportunities.
That's the thing with SEO, I think is quite funny. Like when you first begin, it's the like, here's 6 to 18 months of absolute pain and agony until Google like will rank you. And then you get like your first check is like $50. Like I just spent all this time on this, but it compounds over time, over and over again. Once you actually get it going, like you can do like some changes to a website that's already indexed and doing well, and it does really well. Like we did just on our evaluation tool, I think we added like 20 words, something like that, to our evaluation tool underneath the tool itself. Our natural SEO rankings increased the leads that we're getting inbound from that by, I think it was like 120%. Our average deal size is still around 400, 500K. So that like was pretty quick, pretty nice ROI, right? So yeah, I love that stuff. I want to move into the second part of that. You've sold a few businesses. So I'm curious on your experience there. Like what was the inspiration for selling those businesses and what makes it like the right time for you to actually make that kind of exit?
Most of the time I have this business, I've got it to a place where really I feel like I've put into it what I can or what I want to. Usually there's still opportunity for someone that wants to run with it. But when you have a portfolio of sites, it's like, man, if this was one person's passion project, they could create some sort of cool info product or maybe even physical products. Maybe they could build a brand around it. But I'm not going to do that because my main brand that I focus on is Income School. If you're somebody with a portfolio of sites, oftentimes it's like you've just taken a site to a place where you're like, okay, cool. Like I'm happy. I've accomplished what I was going to do with this thing. Oftentimes I do that. I hold it for a while. I feel good about it. I let the traffic and earnings like get a result, for a little while. I never want to build up a site, right, and get it to its peak and then immediately sell because that feels risky to a buyer. Once they see either stable or just like, even if it's growing, but it's like steady, then you can usually get like the most for it, like the value that it really has, right? Like if I get it up to its peak and I know it's going to stay there for years, if I sell it now, then I have to, people aren't going to want to buy it based on that 1 month of peak earnings, I guess is what I'm saying. So I usually hold it for a while and then I'll work on making sure that it's fairly passive, that it's not dependent upon me. That's a hard thing with some of the brands where we build like a YouTube channel or something. It can be tough. And so we try to make sure that it's about the content and the brand and not the personality. We try to make sure that it's passive enough that somebody could take it over or that it's got a system in place. I know you guys handle a lot of businesses where it's like, it's a business with employees and the whole business is transferring. And that can be a great way to do it too. Another time we sold a bunch of sites all at once because we wanted to kind of start over our portfolio. Honestly, we sold our sites probably 6 months before we should have in terms of getting the most for them. But it was more of like a marketing thing. It was like, hey, everybody that sees us on YouTube, like we're selling all of our sites. It's a huge opportunity for you and you can come buy them. They all have huge growth potential. And also we're going to start new sites. So it was more of a marketing thing. Most of the time, I would say it's more like the first one. I've taken the site to where I want. I'm excited to go start something new or buy something new. And I get this one to a good stable spot and I just ready to move on. Take the cash out.
Yeah, it kind of comes down to the consolidation thing we were talking earlier about. Like, you only have so much time. A lot of my friends, like my buddies back in 2016, 2017, when PBNs were still all the rage and like so many people were using them, they had tons of these little tiny websites. But even them nowadays, like they're just authority site all the time. So even they only have 2 or 3 websites. I like what you said about trending upwards. I often agree with that. I have a good friend, and you probably know him actually. I'll keep him nameless on here, but he's well known in the SEO world. And this guy is amazingly good at SEO. And whenever he's tried to sell a website with us, it's always such a struggle. And the reason why is because the website's too good. Like he's optimized like every possible nook and cranny. So if like another SEO buyer is looking at it, they're like, I no idea what to do with this. It's like everything I would have done is already done, you know?
Yep. It's a buy and hold. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually had to coach them, like make your website's a little bit less perfect when they come onto the marketplace so people can see the growth potential. You're like, oh, that makes sense.
That's funny.
Obviously, there's other ways to grow outside of SEO, but usually those are the buyers looking at those websites. I want to get into your YouTube stuff. You mentioned something that was quite interesting there, but before I do, you and I both know there's so much questionable advice to just flat out wrong advice in the SEO world. So what is a common piece of just bad SEO advice you see out there in the wild all the time?
There's a lot. I do see a lot of myths, I would say, like statements that are just like objectively false because I can prove them wrong because I've done what they say. So, the thing they say you can't do, I've done so many times. People that just say like, you can't rank without building a ton of links. You can't rank without buying links, and I'm just like, well, watch me, it's like, I've proven you wrong, right? Like in logic and mathematics and stuff, there's my engineering background. Disprove it once, it's disproven, right? So don't tell me I can't because I just did again. But I would say a lot of it is around that, like that you have to know and do all of like everything SEO. You just have to do it all right all the time. I think that's a dangerous mindset because a lot of people try to get into this. Like we talk about, the person wants to buy a business and it's just like, oh, well, I don't know anything. I don't have the skills. And really, it's like the whole point of the search engine is to help people find the content they're looking for, the most accurate and most helpful version of it. That's a simplification, but it's generally true. And so like, if we can just focus on making good content and focus on making it really good and helpful for the user, like you've done a lot of the SEO work already. And then as long as like we know a few basic things, like you need to link to your content from your homepage, right? You need a menu. You need like, as long as you don't do something dumb,
you should show people your content.
Yeah, like it's got to get out there. If you orphan all your blog posts, they're not going to get found. But like if you just start with that and don't like screw it up, you've done a lot and it's okay. You don't have to. And so I think a lot of people get so focused on optimizing every little thing and trying to learn every little aspect of SEO. I get a lot of people who are like, hey, for some reason, my, my CLS score is a little bit bad for, and it's like, okay, but is it bad or is it just not perfect?
My page speed fell by 1 point.
I know. And I'm just
I
like,
have to change my entire theme.
do you want to make money from ads? Do you want images on your site? Like, there's some trade-offs here. And so they get so focused on over optimizing for SEO, and they get hung up on those little things, but they miss the big picture, which is like, if you don't have content, there's nothing to rank. I think that's really the biggest thing, is people get so focused on that, just like getting all the SEO stuff right, and they miss out. Like, if we just had more content, people can take that to the extreme, right? It's not just more content like, hey, write 1,000 blog posts and it'll be okay. No, there's some optimization that's needed, and we do need to learn SEO and do it, right? But we got to find that balance.
I agree with you. The more I've learned about SEO, the less I feel like I know about it, because there's just like so many like little
So much,
intricate
right?
things, right? But then you zoom out, like the 80-20 of SEO, really, I would consider it 90% is just content and good backlinks, or doing outreach, like with podcasts or whatever, like
Yeah.
whatever your outreach method is. Like that's it. Like the page speed, even on page stuff, doesn't matter as much as people think it does, in my view, outside of that core bucket of two simple things to do. Like good content, get other people to look at the content more or less, and tell other people about the content, right? And that's SEO.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah. I even joke with my friends, especially the guys who are like dabbling in AI writing, like, yeah, you don't even need high quality content to rank. You only need that if you want to make money. So
That's a good point. I love that. I love the way you just said that, because like, yeah, I get a lot of people who are just like, how are we ever supposed to keep up with this with AI content and all this? And I'm just like, the content, it's not the same. It's not as good. And eventually, like, I don't even think it's going to rank that well. But even if it is, like, people are going to have to leave that content and come look at yours at some point, because that
Oh,
content
yeah.
didn't actually help them. And it certainly didn't sell anything. So I love that.
I've discovered a few keywords. I was just naturally out in the wild searching, and it was definitely an AI written content. I was like, what the hell is this saying? It was more or less like saying, like, the reason why grass is green is because it is tall, therefore the sun comes down for photosynthesis, hence why green is a good color for grass. Like, what is this? So yeah, I backed out of that website. Obviously, I wasn't searching about grass, but it was something, I think, like about a laptop or something like that. But yeah, AI stuff, it makes me laugh. There's this guy, he got a bit of a Reddit virality where he was saying he created this Python code with his own GBT thing, where he would just like mass produce AI content, and was with people also ask stuff. And whenever he found something that would rank with this website that was just completely garbage content, he would delete that content and then go to his actual website and write like a really good version of it. So he just used it as his keyword research, which I thought was really funny. There's an actual use for it. I want to talk about some YouTube stuff with you before we kind of wrap this up, and talk about Project 24, obviously, as well. So on your site, you mentioned that YouTube is a great way for you guys building an audience quickly. So in your view, what is it about YouTube that makes it such a powerful tool for you guys when you're building out these websites? I'm assuming you mean more than just Income School as well. Like, you're doing this with other websites as well.
Yeah, really, it's powerful. There are a couple different ways we use it. One, it's been really powerful for supporting blog content and driving more traffic. We find that videos, even on a brand new channel, just kind of picked up and ranked on YouTube first, but YouTube's a Google property. And so then in the Google index, way faster than a brand new blog. We talk about that sandbox period, right? Where it's like 6 months, maybe a lot longer in some cases, before really your content's ranking very well. But like YouTube videos, they start getting seen pretty much right away. And so we've made channels in the past for some of our blogs where we only put a handful of videos on them, 5 or 6 videos. But those videos just over time through search, I mean, YouTube is an amazing discovery engine. Unlike blogs where for the most part, people have to search to find our content, unless you're really like promoting it hard through social media and paying for that.
List.
Yeah, email list, exactly. But for the most part, like, there's Google Discover, but how many people do that? I do that sometimes, where I like open up a browser and just kind of scroll through, and Google tries to show me articles it thinks I'll be interested in, and it kind of works.
I didn't even know they had that. I never even looked at that.
Yeah, like, it's cool. Like, I just open up the browser and it's got these tabs, and then below it, it's just got a bunch of articles that just based off of my logged in search history, it's like, oh, you might like this article. And it's a combination of news and other things. And that's kind of cool, but I just don't think people are using it much. But on YouTube, like it's a place where people go, they watch a video and then they get sucked in, they watch another and another.
Oh, yeah.
So YouTube's constantly pushing your content. We've had videos that super low quality, shot with a cell phone, no lighting, just talking about something that over the course of 5 years have over 1 million views. They drive traffic to the website. We usually use them with a piece of blog content that support each other rather than duplicating each other. So like if I'm doing a how-to, like any sort of how-to tutorial, if I can show some of those steps rather than just like maybe photos, it's a better experience. But then the blog can have your materials list and the steps written out in a very helpful way. The video goes embedded in the blog post. In the video on YouTube, it's the same video, but you just mention like, make sure that you see the blog post and you have a link to it, and they're supporting each other. We've been extremely effective with that because of YouTube's such a good discovery engine. But the second piece to that is it's not just that it's great for discovery and gets you more traffic and earlier. Those are all great things, but there's a different level of trust and like rapport building that happens through a video format. So when somebody reads a blog post, they're like, I don't know if this was written by a computer or someone who has no idea what they're talking about that did some research. I have no idea who wrote this. And like product reviews are the worst. It's like, there's a really high chance, like probably 90%, that the person writing this review never touched the product.
You don't say. No.
Yeah. I know. Unbelievable. There's no way that's happening.
Heresy.
But in a video, when someone's like, hey, this product has this problem with it, but overall, I think it's a good product. Like the trust level is so much higher. Project 24, even though it's not a physical product, like people feel like they get to know me. Whereas if they just read a bunch of blog posts, they don't even read the byline to see who wrote it. Like, why would they trust me other than, oh, this site was helpful? But when I talk to them in video week after week and somebody finds the channel and next thing you know, they're watching 6 or 7 videos, then all of a sudden they're like, oh man, Project 24 must be awesome. And then they go join. It's just a totally different kind of rapport building platform. And so I mentioned there's 2 different ways we use it. There's the supporting blog content, like I make a video, I have an article, they go together. And then there's like building a channel, like to build kind of a following. And that's more what we do with Income School. And it's extremely effective as well. It's just kind of a different, if I were building a blog to sell it, I would build a YouTube channel where it's not about following me. It's just about the content. And I might have multiple people appear on the channel. You're not there for the person. You're there because the video is helpful. It showed up in search or whatever. You don't really care who's in the videos. And those are easy to sell with the blog.
100%. I like everything there. In fact, I have a lot more questions on YouTube, but I do want to get to Project 24. But before we do that, for anyone out there who is looking to do a YouTube channel, we've sold YouTube channels on the marketplace. They're rare, but they do happen where it's just like, there's not even a website. It's just a YouTube channel. So there are ways to do it where you can even be like faceless. Like most of the channels we sold have been faceless, where like they're PowerPoints basically of video, B-roll and stuff like that, which actually can work really well in a lot of niches. Like there's a YouTuber, Economics Explained, that I'm a huge fan of, and his whole channel is basically just a nice PowerPoint slide with some B-roll. But it's a fascinating channel. So that's one way to do it. And if you wanted to do it the way you're talking about, having several different people on the channel, so the subscribers kind of can get used to the different faces, or they're not bonded to one person, they're bonded to the channel itself. I've seen that work as well. I want to get into Project 24 as we wrap up here. So tell me a bit about what Project 24 is. Like, why is this different from all the plethora of online courses out there?
Project 24 is membership. It's designed to really help anybody, no matter where they are, to be able to build their online content business. We teach blogging and we teach YouTube, and you kind of pick kind of your main track, but you have access to everything. And so anything that we're learning, anything we figured out, we're adding, and it's constantly updated. We had a pretty big refresh to the blogging system that we have earlier this year, a huge update to our YouTube teaching almost a year ago. That's also regularly being updated. So it's fresh course content all the time based on what's happening. But then on top of that, we have a very active community that's part of Project 24. And I think that's one of the biggest helpful things. We have people who stay year after year because of the community, because we have people who have formed groups for accountability, just people to like talk to. I talked to a guy a few weeks ago, came here for a little thing we did. And he said he's been doing this for a couple of years. He's been full-time, left his job, does this. And he's like, this is the first time I've ever actually met anybody else that does this, like ever in real life. And so our community is really helpful. I know. It's like everybody I talk to in my real life, they don't get it. They're like, oh, well, that sounds like a fun little side thing, but when are you going to go get a job? And it's like, dude, I make like 5 times as much as you from my blog, but okay, I'll get a real job someday. But like, it really means something. And so we do that. The community is a big part of what we do. We also do like multiple per week. We have these mastermind calls on various topics for people to participate in. I think just a big part of what makes it different is the focus is just on helping you no matter where you are and providing you with those resources to succeed. So it's not just like, here, we're going to give you a course that's going to teach you how to write a good blog post or that's going to teach you some SEO. It's more like you're going to come in here and look, if you already have a website, that's fine. There's lessons here you can skip. That's cool. But then we're going to dive deep into how to research a blog post, how to come up with the topics, but how to do research if you're not an expert and actually like make the kind of content that's going to do well in Google. But it's just good, helpful content. It's going to help your marketing. That's actually going to like help somebody and solve their problem. Right. And it's just like, no matter where you are, it's going to pick you up and it's going to provide you with the exact next step all along the way to get you to generating a great income. I think it's kind of what makes it different. I've done a lot of courses, online courses that feel a lot like school, where like I went to a class and it was like, they had a curriculum. They were supposed to make sure that I learned certain things. But at the end of the class, I was like, okay, so what's this going to do for my job someday? Like, how am I going to use this? Like, I learned a bunch of theory. That's cool. But now how do I do this? Like in engineering, it was like, okay, cool. I learned if I put different chemicals into a distillation column and design it this way, they'll separate. But like in the real world, how do I design that? Like what software do they use? Like show me. And it just was so separate. And then you get to the job and you're like, I don't actually know how to do anything. And you spend 6 months like learning how to do it in the real world. We show you the real world application from the beginning. That's the way I see it.
That's awesome. That sort of reminds me of one of the times when I was in Alaska in the Arctic Circle. There's this guy, he became a company man, was just like the top man of the oil rig. But he was really young. He was like mid-20s. So he just graduated with his engineering degree and got like hoisted up there. So he's there with like a bunch of these like earthy people, I should say, very colorful people who've been around for a long time. And he looks at the different pipes and everything. He's like, this is not the way that I was shown it would be built. Like, well, of course, it's negative 80 degrees out here. We have very limited space. This isn't like a warehouse at the university. Yeah. And I felt so bad for that guy. He's just like, oh no, he's supposed to be the leader here, but nothing's working because nothing is he was taught to do, right?
Yeah, it's so true. And I know we're kind of talking engineering and manufacturing and oil and stuff, but like that's so how it is. And I think this is a good thing for people to learn. We all learn stuff, we all know stuff, and then you like get into a situation. And if you don't have a learning growth mindset and are willing to be humble and learn from people who are beneath you, whatever, you're not ever going to be successful.
100%.
And I think that's an attitude we need in this industry too. Like, I know a lot of stuff. I've been doing this a long time, but I read blog posts. I watch videos by other marketers, other people that teach this stuff. I'm always looking for things I can learn. If we're stuck in our way and not willing to learn, like we're in trouble. I learned so many cool things from these people that had been operating the equipment for years and years. And I was getting paid more than them. I was leading them, but I was learning from them all the time. And it's like, I know the theory, I know what's supposed to work, but like, you tell me, what are the things that after years of experience, what are the things you noticed that caused the problems? And the insights were amazing. And so it doesn't matter where the good ideas come from. They come from everywhere. So take them. If you're growing a team, like take the ideas no matter where they come from. Doesn't matter if it's the newest person or the cleaner. I don't care. Like good ideas are good ideas. I don't care where they come from.
One of my favorite things is I became a manager, which is this is probably a bad sign of management, but I think it's funny, so I still do it. When I bring a new person on and we're doing like a big quarterly meeting, I would look at the new person like, so what do you think we should do? Like, what do you mean? Like, for our quarterly goals, what should they be? Like, just let them like come up with something like, I love doing that.
I love that.
I feel slightly bad after, but sometimes I come up with awesome ideas. So I feel it's a good question still.
Yeah, I've sat in conference rooms in meetings. Like my personality, I'm not one who's just going to like chime in when VPs and stuff were talking. And so I would sit there and I'd be like, this thing they're discussing, I feel like there's an obvious, easy answer, but it can't be that simple. And I don't want to look stupid. And so I keep my mouth shut. And after an hour of all these people talking back and forth, like, it turns out that the answer I had at the very beginning was like the best solution. And it was like, well, maybe I should have said something, but if you don't create an environment where like the new person can say, you know what, here's what I think the goals should be. They might be totally wrong and short-sighted or whatever, but they might also give you a good idea. And so we need to foster environments where people don't feel stupid when they say something, because sometimes it is going to be stupid. Sometimes the new guy is going to say something and you're like, okay, yeah, that goal, super short-sighted. It incentivizes all the wrong things. But if we foster an environment where I know, yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, this manager. I 100% agree with you. I regularly ask my team, especially the quiet ones, what do they think about X or this or that, right? To get them to talk.
It's great.
Often they have great ideas and they're just the type that doesn't speak up. One thing I like what you had to say about Project 24 is the community aspect. So anyone out there listening to this, you probably know this already about me, but I'm a total course junkie. Like I love courses. I go through so many of them. I'm just absolutely obsessed with internet marketing, especially earlier on in my career when I'm still trying to figure out how all this work. But nowadays, like I still buy courses. And one of the things that I buy courses for is less about the course and more about the community. So I'm glad that you talked about that. Community is huge, like being an industry of peers that are actually doing this. Like your friend who said that you never met someone who has done this before in real life. Like that's really important stuff for growing the career in my view. So are you ready for the final part of the interview where I ask you the rapid fire questions?
Sure, absolutely.
This is the toughest part of the entire interview. We might have to edit this. This is very high pressure stuff. All right.
Perfect.
So I'll ask you 3 questions. You just give me the first answer that comes to your mind. And here we go. So what are the best hidden growth opportunities when it comes to scaling content sites?
Video is the first one that comes to my mind. YouTube video is huge. And then I would say topical authority, getting deeper into your content is huge. And then the other one would just be optimizing monetization. I think we need to look outside of the easy, obvious, passive stuff. We can do info products that are pretty passive too. They just take a little bit of work to set up, but the reward is huge. So 3 big things.
Yeah, I love all those, especially the third one. We'll have to get you back on the podcast to talk more about that stuff because I feel like a lot of you are missing an opportunity there. What tools or resources can people use to help prepare their content site for an exit? What did you use when you were looking to sell?
Whenever I'm looking to sell a website, I try to simplify as much as possible. In terms of tools and stuff, like totally drawing a blank of anything specifically coming to mind in terms of a tool. But really, it's mostly been, let me try to get this as simple as possible so it's a really attractive buy. So depending on what you have in your business, what products you have, if you're selling an info product, whatever that is, like if it's all intertwined with any other business you have, like you got to separate it out, but just keep it simple as you can so that it's nice, neat package.
Processed out. Yeah, I like that. All right. Hardest question. What has been your funniest moment working in the internet world?
That is a hard question.
Why is the funniest moment of this podcast my witty comeback?
That's right. The funniest thing for me has been just some of the fun things we've done with video. It's always fun to like stretch your skills and stuff. And I'm not naturally like, if you'd told me 10 years ago that I would be doing this for a living, I'd have thought you were nuts. But here I am. And probably one of the funniest things to me that comes to mind was in a video where Jim was replacing the back deck on his house. And it's like a second story deck. And so I had this idea like, we should cut a hole in your deck and I should fall through it. And it was my idea. Like I normally didn't come up with the ideas. And so like we totally did it. And it took us like all day to make that shot work. But it was super fun. And in the end, like the video cut, it like totally looks like I fell through and landed on the floor below. I didn't, by the way, like I fell onto a platform that we built and then we moved the platform and then I hung there and then I fell the rest of the way and we cut it and it worked great. But just doing fun, silly things like that, just having fun with the work that we do. But there have been a lot of funny things with like meeting people in real life for the first time. Sometimes people's reactions are kind of fun. I don't know, lots of funny moments.
That's awesome. You'll have to send me the video if you still have of you falling through the deck.
Yeah, I'll find that.
Awesome, man. It was awesome having you on here. If people want to find out more about Project 24 or connect with you personally, where's the best place for them to do that?
Connecting with me, you can just go to incomeschool.com. If you go to the About page, there's contact info there. But also, really the best place to see what we're doing and learn from us is our YouTube channel. YouTube released new handles. So our handle is at Income School, one word. Or you can just go to YouTube and search Income School and you'll find us. But that's a great place to find out what we're up to and what we're teaching. There's a ton of good content there.
Awesome, man. Well, we'll put all those show links down below. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
There you have it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it got you inspired at all the different things that are happening in this industry. And of course, if you just want to buy a highly profitable business, you can always go to empireflippers.com/marketplace. Or maybe you want to make an exit of your highly profitable business, and you could go to empireflippers.com/sell your site. I've been your host, Greg. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you leave a review, give us a like, a follow, share it across social media. Talk to you all soon. See you on the next episode.